1 million, 2 million, 7 million, 12 million. JJ, I'm sorry. Welcome to Breakdown. SEC versus the Big Ten. JJ, true or false? Money can't buy love.
I don't know. Why don't you give me some money and I'll I got enough love him, but
I'll tell you what. Money can't buy love. Can money buy you a Big Ten championship?
it absolutely can. It can't buy Ohio State a Big Ten championship, but
There we go. There we go. Ohio State, the highest paid team in football, couldn't beat Michigan last week.
you know, Michigan gave them their second loss to go with that loss against Oregon early in the season.
Talk to me about Ryan Day, JJ.
Ryan Day is a guy from New Hampshire. He is not from Ohio.
Okay.
And he didn't grow up understanding the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. He adopted it when he came to become Ohio State's offensive coordinator. And then when Urban Meyer stepped down, he, assumed that position of the head coach. And he's learning the hard way what it's like to be in Ohio when you don't win against Michigan.
JJ, Ryan Day's been at Ohio State 5 years now, I believe.
5 years. What's his record?
He 66-10.
It's a pretty good record, don't you think
It
so?
is. He's 1-4 against Michigan.
Yeah.
In the last 4 years, JJ, he's been paid $10 million. And he make that money to beat Michigan.
$10 million total or $10 million?
$10 million a year. 40 million in the last 4 years.
That's quite
And
the
he
amount.
has not defeated Michigan. Is he on the hot seat?
He is on the scoldingly hot seat. Ever since he said he was gonna hang 100 on him. First off, I don't think he's gotten to that total in the 4 games since then. But also, those 4 losses, he's on the scalding hot seat. Ohio State could win the national championship, and there would be some people calling for him to be fired still.
So if they won the national, all would not be forgiven with a national championship.
It would mostly be forgiven, but they would still be circling that last game in November for next year, especially now with Michigan's recruiting class. It keeps on rising ever since they got Bryce Underwood.
Last year, 3 minutes after Michigan won the national championship, what did Ohio State do?
Well, I saw Quinshon Judkins tweet about how he was transferring to Ohio State, so they spent a little bit of money on him, that's for sure.
They started scheming and planning how to beat Michigan. And yet and still, if there ever was a chance to blow out your arch enemy, last Saturday was the chance to do it.
Yeah, it was a 21-point spread. That was the highest spread in over 30 years.
Why did Ohio State not win? What happened?
Well, Ohio State decided that they wanted to beat Michigan at its own game. And that's in the trenches. That's up front. That's running the ball. The last 10 times, it might be more than 10 times, but I remember seeing a stat that the last 10 times, whoever had the most yards in the game came out
Rushing
winner.
yards?
Most yards rushing, in the game was the winner, and that proved true for this year too. Ohio State tried to run the ball and they couldn't. Michigan has the best defensive tackles in the country between Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. They have some of the best defensive front, and they're some of the best defensive linemen in the country, and Ohio State tried to run the ball on them.
Michigan they completed 9 passes, I think, for 67, 68 yards, and yet they won. The fourth quarter, Ohio State was shut out. I mean, the second half they were shut out. The fourth quarter, how many first down did they get?
Man, 0.
They got 0 first down in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I agree. Mr. Day is on the hot seat.
Yeah.
JJ, what other interesting game happened last week that you want to talk about? You have more to say about the Ohio State-Michigan game.
No, obviously the ending wasn't what we like to see in college football. It ended with a brawl at midfield because they tried to plant a flag in turf, which is just never going to happen to begin with. So I don't even know why they even tried. But you know, you know, Ohio State didn't take kindly to that.
And you know what? There were three other situations where flag planting caused ruckus last week. North Carolina, North Carolina State, Florida State, Arizona State.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied with the Big Ten's penalty for Michigan, Ohio State?
Yeah, $100,000 slap on the wrist per team. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean,
That's not a slap on the wrist. That's a mean look. It's not really a snap on the wrist because there's no pain, no anything there.
Yeah, it's a very delicate slap on the wrist too. But yeah,
So should the NCAA, the Big Ten, just ignore these flag planting things, or should they do something?
they should probably do something about it. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. For the most part, it is in these rivalry games when it happens. You know, it usually happens after like a sustained amount of success. But like you saw with Arizona State and Florida State and Florida, like it was just whoever won that one year, and you know.
But you got to win on the road, though.
Well, because when Notre Dame did it to Michigan State, I think that was like after 5 years in a row of them winning, and then Baker Mayfield did it. I think he was the first person to do it after just one win at the only teams.
Texas did it this year in Ann Arbor. But this is my thing, JJ. How big of a deal is it to plant that flag? Is it that important?
It just adds insult to injury. I mean, it's just another way to show that, it's just to rub your opponent's face and nose in it that they lost it to their hated rival.
Would you be upset if the NCAA got rid of it?
I honestly could not care less. I mean, I don't think it really matters. I think like it probably is a way to ensure that things don't escalate. Because eventually, I think like it might eventually escalate. So, I mean, I think it's probably the safest option to do, but I don't really.
But the police did use mace.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous. I mean,
just this is my thought.
Yeah.
If the coach is suspended one game, if their team planted a flag, you will not see a flag get planted again in college football.
Yeah, you wouldn't unless the players really wanted to hate their coach. I remember Eastern high school basketball had a couple of dunks in pregame warm-ups, and that's the way to get your coach kicked out of the game. So
that was back in the day when it was illegal to dunk in high school basketball, and you couldn't even dunk in warm-ups. But the high school, I think they had 3 players that dunked in high school, and that got the coach ejected. They dunked in warm-ups, and they got him ejected before the game even started. But no, that wouldn't happen in college football. If coaches are suspended for one game, you will not see a flag planted on any field in college football. And you know what?
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't allow the equipment managers if they caught sight of anything. Flags are a little bit conspicuous. You can't really smuggle that one in, but
I think that should happen. So they talked about Nebraska last week. What did Nebraska play? Nebraska played
Iowa,
and
they lost.
They were at Iowa.
They lost to Iowa. I think they gave up, I don't know, less than 100 yards offense or 100 yards passing for sure. And but Nebraska still took the L, but they're bowl eligible
for the first time in a long time. Congratulations to Nebraska.
Conversely, Wisconsin, for the first time in a long time,
20-some years,
22 years, they've been bowl eligible until this year. Luke Fickell took them to 5-7. A disappointing loss against Minnesota at home.
I thought my Spartan was going to show a little bit better than what they did. They scored first, and then I guess the cold weather got to them against Rutgers, and they did not become bowl eligible. They stuck at 5.
While they did not become bowl eligible, a former Michigan State quarterback is
Arizona State.
Yeah, he's playing in a championship game for the opportunity to make it to the college football.
The Big 12 championship game.
Yeah. He has opportunity to make it to the college football playoff if they beat Iowa State in that.
Arizona State 10-2.
Yeah.
We playing Iowa State in Arlington, Texas, this Saturday.
Yeah, they won like 2-3 games last year, so that was quite the turnaround. Good for them.
JJ, one thing. Let's talk about an SEC game last week. Georgia
Tech.
Georgia Tech.
The 8 overtime classic that Georgia Tech.
8 overtime. Was it supposed to be like that?
No, Georgia Tech had plenty of opportunities to win it in regulation, and they just didn't want to. Haynes King fumbled. You know,
There was a lot of chaos in that game.
yeah, there was just a whole lot of.
8 overtimes. That was a big game for Georgia.
It was a big game for Georgia. It was a huge. It could have been a huge game for Georgia Tech. Had Georgia didn't need it to make it to the SEC championship game, and if Georgia does win the SEC championship, it doesn't matter how many losses the SEC champion would get invited to the college football playoff. But yeah, no, it was a big game for Georgia for sure.
It was because if they had lost that game and then lose to Texas in the SEC championship game, they would not have gone to they would not be going to the college football playoff, which now look like they are locked to go.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be, taking points deducted for losing in their championship game.
Okay, JJ, let's talk about the college football playoff. The rankings will come out in about 45 minutes from now. To me, there's like two decisions, and let me know if you think differently. Number one is where Miami would be ranked, and number two, where I'm gonna call them the trio of 3-loss SEC teams: Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina, where those teams will be ranked.
Yeah.
In my mind, one of those 4 schools will make it to the college football playoff. But we'll know more later on. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's for sure that one of those 4 will make it. I'm not sure which one, but if I had to guess, I would put my money on Alabama, just knowing the history of how they are treated, and in addition to them having potentially the best win over Georgia.
You and I think alike. I think it would be Alabama. Who's of those teams, though, JJ? Which school is the hottest? Which team is the hottest right now?
Well, I think South Carolina. I mean, I've believed in South Carolina for a while now.
You did. You talked about their defense for day one.
And they have a 19-year-old freshman quarterback, Lenore Sellers, who's been
a redshirt freshman.
Redshirt freshman, but he is 19, and he has been just dynamic.
Lights out.
He's been playing really well the last. They've won 7 in a row, 6 in a row.
I don't know.
They've been on quite a win streak. Maybe it's only 5 in a row. I can't remember.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They won 6 in a row.
Yeah, so on their 6-game win streak, he's been dynamic. He's been lights out. I'm really looking forward to see him making the leap next year. But I think he's made the leap in season, and I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC has to offer.
I agree. The reason South Carolina will not make it to the playoff this year is, and I'm going to agree with Lane Kiffin on this. We played a game that should matter.
Yeah, they lost to Alabama. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to LSU.
Yeah, they lost to the 2 teams that they're in competition for right now to get in. Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Those 3 teams are in competition to get in. They both got 3 losses, but they lost to both of those teams. So if you put South Carolina in ahead of the 2 teams that beat them, I just can't see that happening.
Yeah, it's funny that Lane Kiffin said, we played a game that should matter. I wonder where he was last year when Florida State won all of their games, regular season games, and yet that didn't matter enough to get them into the college football playoff.
Well, I don't think it mattered to Lane Kiffin because he wasn't involved in that. But this year,
are you suggesting that Lane Kiffin might be self-centered, self-oriented?
I'm suggesting that every football coach is self-centered and self-oriented.
I would agree with that too. My point is only that I don't take a lot of validity in what Lane Kiffin has to say because he's going to be promoting. He's going to say whatever is best for Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss has the least likelihood of getting in.
JJ, I agree with you there. Well, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to say South Carolina has the least. I'll say South Carolina least.
I think South Carolina will be ranked a little bit higher. Well,
they may be. They may be. I mean, they're a better team, I would say.
Okay.
But I do think, the record matters.
Yeah.
The win, the game lost. The wins matter. JJ.
Just like the game against Kentucky. Yeah.
This coming weekend, we got conference championships.
You do.
And we touched on it just slightly a little bit earlier. The biggest one. Well, let's mention the SEC and the Big Ten first. Georgia, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, Texas is a 2.5 point favorite.
In Georgia, in Atlanta.
In Atlanta,
They've already played earlier this year.
yeah, and Texas sustained their only loss to Georgia
In Texas.
in
At
Texas. So I don't like I don't like Texas in that matchup. I don't think Quinn Ewers can necessarily lead a team. I think he can be led on. He can be he can ride the bus, but he can't drive the bus. I feel like Carson Beck. I don't really necessarily believe that in his arms, but he can run the ball.
So who you got in that game?
I got Georgia.
Okay, I got Georgia as well. So yeah, let's talk the Big 10. Penn State against undefeated Oregon in Indianapolis.
The last undefeated team left.
The only undefeated team left.
Yeah.
What's your take on that game?
My take on it is that this is the first time James Franklin has been here since, what was it, 2016? Was that the last time the Penn State made it to the Big Ten championship game?
Oh man, I didn't know that.
They won the Big Ten in 2016, and that was the only year the Big Ten didn't have a representative. Or maybe Ohio State was the representative. I don't know, but I know Penn State did not make it to the college football playoff. But a
big deal for Penn State.
It's a huge deal for Penn State for them to make this leap be able to play this game. But I think it's a bigger deal for Oregon because Oregon's already beaten Ohio State. They've already beaten Michigan. If they can beat Penn State. Those of the traditional powers within the Big Ten, well, at least since '93 or whatever.
You left off one other big power.
What's the other big power?
They beat Indiana.
Oregon didn't play Indiana.
Can they play Indiana?
Indiana has one loss, and that's to Ohio State.
My bad. You're right. So, well.
But, yeah, they would have the opportunity to beat the three best programs in the conference, and I think that would be a very nice little welcome to the conference for Phil Knight and his Oregon Ducks.
I'm going to ask you, was Lane Kiffin correct when he said that the conference playoff doesn't mean that much? Conference championship game, rather, doesn't mean that much?
It doesn't matter to him because, he'll be sitting on the couch watching that just along with the college football playoff regardless. So, yeah, he's right. It does not matter that much to him.
Okay, let's talk about a conference championship that does matter. The ACC.
Yeah.
11-1 SMU playing Clemson in Charlotte, North Carolina. 9-3 Clemson.
9-3 Clemson, yeah.
SMU is a 2.5-point favorite. What's your take on that game? Who's the better team?
I think SMU has been the better team ever since they went to Kevin Jennings at quarterback. They haven't lost. They haven't looked back. This is their first year in the ACC. Oregon's first year in the Big Ten. Texas's first year in the SEC. Then SMU's first year in the ACC.
Making some noise. Their first year.
Yeah, they are making some noise. Oh. And all three of those teams are favored against their opponent.
How good is Clemson, JJ? Everybody knows Clemson. Clemson has won national championship before.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They don't have the receiving core that Clemson is known for. They had the DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, Hunter Renfrow,
quarterbacking as well.
Yeah, I mean they've Justin Ross. They've had like a whole lot of T. Higgins. Clemson has had a lot of notable names at the skill position, and they don't have that wide receiver this year. But they do have Phil Maffa, who's a great running back. And I do think that their quarterback is Cade Klubnik is a very, very good runner as seen against South Carolina last week. But he can also throw the ball, and he's been having, I think he's been playing like one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in the country this year. So I think he's really made a step up. So I do think Clemson could beat SMU. I think they could have the best player on the field at any given day. But I do like SMU to win.
You know what? SMU got the death penalty back. But the early 80s.
Yeah, the Pony Express.
Pony Express. Eric Dickerson, James, Correct James. The guys were putting it down and picking them up and putting them down because they could carry the ball. And they were good. Yeah. They were the best money in football. Now, NIL. Now it's legal. Back then it wasn't legal. But.
Payola, SMU paid their way into their conference that they just won.
They did.
Or well, they won the regular season, but we'll see if they can win the.
I'll say this. I mean, I congratulate LSU. Most people out there listening, JJ, cannot name you 2 players on SMU's team.
Yeah, I mean, well, I gave them one.
They are. I know the quarterback. They are legit, and I think they're gonna be here to stay. I don't think they're gonna be a one and done. When I say one and done, I don't mean they're gonna win this year, but I mean they're going to be back next year with making some noise.
Well,
That's what I'm talking
of all the ACC schools that are out there, what school has a better, more fertile recruiting base than where SMU has right there in Dallas?
Well, Florida State's pretty.
Yeah,
fertile.
Tallahassee is pretty good, but
Yeah.
I still think Dallas might produce a little bit more football players per capita or just raw numbers than Tallahassee.
But in the NIL of the day, you don't have to get your recruit from your area. You can get your recruit from the portal.
That's true, but it's probably a lot easier when you can drive 5 minutes over to watch them play football, and you can be at every single game. It's probably a little bit easier to recruit that way.
Okay, Clemson win, JJ. They in the playoff. They lose, they're obviously out of the playoff. Who you got winning that game? Because that game is going to impact the 3 SEC schools that we talked about.
Oh
earlier.
yeah, absolutely. Because if Clemson gets in, SMU still will probably get in as well. So,
I agree.
So
I agree.
ACC that they would be a bid thief, as we like to call it in the NCAA tournament.
They will knock Alabama. If Clemson win, they will knock Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina out.
And that's the only conference where this is the case because the Mountain West is a one big league. Whoever wins that is going. The Big 12 is a one big league. Whoever wins that is going. Whoever loses is not. SEC is getting 3-4 teams, and Big 10's getting
4 if they lucky. Big Ten getting 4 automatic.
Big 10's getting 4.
Yeah.
So the ACC, that's the conference of intrigue. So I'm rooting for SMU because I want Miami to make it. I think Miami could win it all. I think they have the best player in the country.
JJ,
honestly.
you and I differ big time on Miami, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm really bullish on Cam Ward. I think he's the best player in the
Oh,
country.
I'm a bullish on Cam Ward as well.
And I think when you are at that position, you can get high. You can take over.
Miami has not defeated a top 25 team this year, and they have quite a few wins against non-top 25 teams where they struggled to come from behind because of Mr. Ward, Cam Ward. He showed his stuff, but as a team, man, I'm just not feeling it for Miami.
I watched Cam Newton win a championship and have not one player on his offense.
Drafted.
No, not one player on his offense played it down in the NFL.
Well, you're right.
Not
Didn't get drafted. Didn't play.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
I don't think Cam Ward is a Cam Newton. They both Cams.
They are both Cams. I like Cam Ward a lot, and I want to see Miami, and so I'm rooting for SMU.
Who do you think gonna win though? Who do you think?
I think SMU. I think the better team is SMU. I think Kevin Jennings, ever since he's assumed the position at quarterback, SMU has been a well-oiled machine, and they've been a machine. And I think
their offense has been really good. Clemson got a great defense.
They do. They have a great defensive line.
I'm gonna go with SMU on that as well. JJ, you want to talk basketball before we get out of here?
We'll talk a little bit of basketball. What do you want to talk about?
Well, my Razorbacks are not the Razorbacks I was hoping for. Kentucky is way better than people gave them credit for. Michigan State, I don't know. Michigan is doing really, really good. I think Illinois is going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten this year. Purdue is still good.
Yeah, no, Edie, no problem.
It's a whole lot to talk about. What do you want to talk about? What's the key for basketball for you?
Well, I mean, you have Auburn, the number 1 team in the
yes.
or the number 2 team in the country. Number 3 team in the country is Tennessee, and number 4 team in the country is Kentucky. So the SEC is they're doing what the Big Ten was doing
in preseason. This is, not preseason, early season.
Yeah.
This is early season.
Yeah, so the SEC looks pretty legit. I am disappointed by Arkansas, but not surprised whatsoever. John Calipari is the most stubborn human being alive, and he has not evolved his coaching.
JJ, there are some people in Arkansas who like Mr. Calipari quite a bit.
Well, he's brought a lot of talent to Arkansas. There's I'm not writing the season off, but
Okay.
I'm also not surprised. And Michigan State has been a little bit disappointing. I'm wondering if Izzo's going to go the route of Jim Boeheim. I don't know. Michigan State does not look as impressive as I.
Best team in the Big Ten for you early in the year?
Well, Purdue looks really good. Illinois looks really good. They both lost a lot of talent, but I'm gonna go Purdue.
I'm gonna go Illinois.
Okay.
JJ, I want to do one thing before we get out of here. And that's because I'm so close to the Arkansas Razorback. There are so many people, my brother included, calling for Arkansas to fire Sam Pittman. I don't think it's going to happen. But do you think if Arkansas fired Sam Pittman, their football coach, that they could get a high-level coach to come in and replace him?
I think it depends. I think this is a cycle where I can't remember who's been fired already.
North Carolina.
North
Mac
Carolina,
Brown.
West Virginia. I think you could be.
Well, but you know North Carolina coach probably won't coach again because Mac Brown is too old.
Yeah.
Now,
UCF opened.
that's
Gus
true.
Malzahn is going
That's
to be the
true.
offensive
That's
coordinator
true.
for Florida State.
That's true.
I think Arkansas could be, potentially one of the better jobs opening if they were to open this year. I think it was already announced that Pittman's going to be back at 25, but I think
Could they get Ryan Day to go to Fayetteville?
no, they cannot do that. But
Okay.
they could get a really good coach. I mean, look at what Indiana got. They got Kurt Signetti. Everybody,
But no one knew he was that good prior
well,
to him
you have to
coming
be
there.
smart. You have to be strategic. You have to be smart. You have to be able to identify
That's
talent.
True. That's true. JJ, I love talking sports with you, brother.
Same.
We got to do it again. Y'all come back and hear us the next time we talk. We're going to get out of here. WPS, Woo Pig Suey.
And no more Houday.
Yeah, they look bad.
Yeah, no.
We out of
they're
here.
out.
Woo Pig Suey.